Well, welcome. Hopefully everybody had a wonderful week. Hopefully everybody had a great weekend. It is Friday, April 24th. I thank everybody for jumping on the call and the Zoom meeting with us again today. Today's going to be some updates. We don't actually have a ton of data that we're going to share, assuming that people are probably have a ton of stuff on their plate. So if we get done a couple of minutes early, that would be great. And if we go the full time, that's just as well. And if anybody has any questions, as always, please make sure you put them in the Zoom chat and we will be monitoring that. So today's agenda, we're going to do a sort of spring COVID update for a wrap-up, spring classes wrap-up. We're going to try to give a brief overview. As many people know, Dean Rogan and I met with NECHI yesterday. We'll give you an update on how that presentation or hearing or meeting, whatever they refer to it as, we'll give you an update there. We want to talk a little bit about some of the fall planning in terms of COVID-19, do a very, very small fall enrollment updates. There's some positive things happening there, some areas that we might be able to influence, again, continuing on. As part of that, there are marketing updates that we'll share with the entire community as well. We have some other updates that we want to make sure the community is aware of, and then just one important date moving forward. So it's a pretty full agenda, but we won't be weighing you down with a bunch of data. We made it through week 5. 2 weeks to go, and sincerely want to continue to thank the entire community, especially all the people that are working with our students, the student success coaches, the student success commons, the faculty, our adjuncts, department chairs. Everybody has just been unbelievably incredible. And just a reminder that we are all in this together. Although we're alone and people are functioning, I think York County has been a great example of, I think our true colors really came through, and that's something that both Dean Rogan and I tried to share with NECHI yesterday. So for the COVID-19 spring updates, I'm going to pass it over to Dean Airy.
Thank you, President Fisher, and happy Friday, everybody. I'm happy to share some updates with all of you. So as we know, or as you probably don't already know, the senior leadership team was got together and we discussed academic probation and suspension for this semester. And given everything going on with COVID, we made the determination that it would be best not to put students on probation or suspension this semester for their academics. Similarly, but slightly different, is the financial aid process, which, as many of you already know, there's a separate suspension and probation process there. And in most cases, students will not be put on probation or suspension for financial aid purposes as long as it's connected to COVID-19. More specifics can be talked about with financial aid. But the top line of that is we're really trying to make sure that students, we're not penalizing them for what is truly a challenging situation for everybody. So that's what I wanted to make sure everybody knew with regards to that. I sent out, and many of you may or may not know that the coaches send out to our entire enrollment, the spring enrollment that is, an email once a week, and I try to give them some talking points to pass on to the students. So this week, or excuse me, the one that will go out next week, I just sent to the coaches today, and some of the highlights there mention the withdraw date. As all of you, I believe, already know, May 8th is the extended withdrawal period for our students this semester, because again, we want to give them every opportunity to be successful in the course this semester. Also, the coaches will be sending out to the students the pass, low pass, no pass information. And again, the quick highlights of that are that students will have an opportunity to see their grades first and then choose the pass, low pass, no pass option. In the email that will go out to all students, it is highly recommended that the student talk with their faculty advisor, because I do recognize that in some courses and some programs, the student may be thinking pass, no pass, but in reality, it doesn't work well for that program, or perhaps if they want to transfer. So we are reminding students that although they have that option, they do want to speak with their faculty advisors before they choose that. And they will have until June, let's see, I have the date here. We were giving them until June 9th in order to make the determination of whether they want to go pass, no pass. So they have lots of time to consider that. The other thing in the note that I sent out was about book returns. And that's obviously through the bookstore. There's information if a student has rented a textbook, they should have received an email, or they will receive probably next week an email with a label that they can print so they can mail their rented books back. As far as selling their books back, obviously the bookstore is closed. There's information on the website, and I sent them a link to for them to facilitate that process if they want to sell their books back to the bookstore. The other piece that we mentioned in our communication with the students is, of course, the registration, encouraging them to speak with all of you, the faculty advisors, if students are looking to register for courses. So that's been a weekly reminder since registration opened. And also in there, the last thing that's in there is mentioning of the full-time scholarship, so that all students have information about that full-time scholarship and the benefits and the qualifications and all of that. So that's just a little bit about how we are wrapping up this semester. So I'll hand it back to President Fisher.
Thank you very much. Just again, a big thank you to everyone, and I said this earlier a couple seconds ago, and I also would be remiss if I didn't, Jason mentioned this, to really thank the financial aid people and the business office people. Dave and Michelle have been incredible working with our students and supporting them throughout this entire process. Same with everyone in the business office. It's just been incredible. So I want to add them to it. As we sort of wrap up the spring, I don't want to miss out on the opportunity for us to really assess our response, because I think there are going to be a lot of valuable opportunities for us to learn from this. We responded to a crisis in a very short time. I think there's probably a lot of things that we did well. There are certainly things that we would do differently, and for us to find out what worked and what did not work. So over the coming days and weeks, we'll come up with a very short survey. We recognize that everybody's busy. Some of this has already been done with students, which we appreciate it, but we do want to try to capture that because we can use the information to build out our continuity plan as we move forward. So please stay tuned for that, and please participate in that, because that will be valuable. I think it also adds to the culture of assessment that we're trying to build, and you'll hear about some of that in the NETCHI update. And I do think it would be another great thing, possibly even for the assessment committee to do a conference on, and to be able to share that information out widely. So we'll have more info to come on that. So stay tuned. With that being said, it is my pleasure to pass it over to Dean Rogan so she can give you an update on our NETCHI meeting.
And this might be our last update. I think I've been doing NETCHI updates along with Kathy Farrick for about 3 years now. So this was at least our last meeting or interaction with NETCHI, other than when they give us the final response on it. So yesterday we had our meeting with the commissioners, and they had the report from the team, our response to the team report, and lots of questions for us. So they went over most of the concerns, most of the things that were addressed in our letter of response. And actually, I think we felt really good. I was really happy. They grilled us for an hour, and we had an answer to everything. We didn't have an answer that said everything was all fixed or it was all perfect, but it was clear that we've been working on things that, as a college, everything we've been doing for the last 6 months is really showing. The Creating Culture of Assessment, they had been looking at our assessment website. They had been looking at the work that has been being done across the campus. We gave them an example of holding our first assessment conference, and they appreciated that. We talked about the PBA, the planning, budgeting, and assessment process, because that actually takes care of 3 of the concerns that NETCHI had with us. And we talked about the challenge we were having in implementing it in the ideal format this semester, but that we were still rolling it out in bits and pieces as much as we could this semester by making the budget as transparent as possible, by having people advocate for their areas, for the pieces of the budget that would impact their departments or their areas. And how we would connect our strategic plan tactics and strategies that are currently exist in the strategic plan with the system's overall plan of the 3 major initiatives the system is looking at. And we talked about governance as something that we all recognize that is still needs to be worked on, that we have the Cornerstones of Governance survey response that we haven't really formalized and done anything with, but that governance is going to be something that we do look at going forward. So I left the meeting in one of those modes where you were like, yes, we did it. Oh my God, we answered it. I was really excited. So I hope that they felt the same way I did when it ended. But there were lots of nodding and smiling. President Fisher hit all the right notes and encouraged them about when they might want to come back and visit us. They mentioned they might want to come back in 2 years. He suggested 3 years might be a great time to visit us. And that was very deftly done. So I think we're probably in a really good place. I think we can all be very proud of the work that we've done for the last 2.5 years. And we were very honest with NECHI. We did a great self-study that laid it all out. And now we've been trying to address those areas of concern and weakness that we've all known we've had. So I think we can feel really good. I believe we're actually supposed to get a phone call in the next couple of days, which I guess would be the final update. But we haven't received anything yet, correct, President Fisher?
Nothing yet. We're waiting with bated breath.
So I would just say thank you to everyone who participated in the hundreds of little ways and large ways of putting together a self-study, being part of the visit, being part of the responses, all the work we're doing to address the concerns. It definitely was a whole college effort, and we can feel really good about what we've done.
Dean Rogan, I just want to echo what you said, and I want to thank you for your leadership on this. And I intentionally asked Dean Rogan to give the update because the reality is this is the work that you all have done. I had a very small part in this, which was to be able to answer some questions that they asked. Quite honestly, what I've observed and what I've seen in just 5 weeks made a lot of that easy, and really to address just same findings of what we identified in our self-study, what they found in their report. The greatness of this institution is the people, and we keep saying that over and over. There's certainly room for opportunity, but COVID-19 in every possible way captures everything that their concerns were. We've had to assess situations, and every single step we've had to adapt. We've had to use information and data that was readily available to us to make decisions. We had to think strategically, which I think will tie into some of the strategic planning. We've made adaptations in terms of adding people to the cabinet in a short term. We had the best attendance that we've ever had with the College Council. We've implemented a new budget process that ties in all these initiatives, like Doreen said. So it was easy to capture some of that. I do think there's still a lot of work to be done. We should get a phone call, hopefully early next week. They'll inform us of what their final decision is. I do anticipate, they gave us, I think, some foreshadowing of possibly another visit in 2 years. And as Doreen mentioned, I tried to very nicely suggest 3 years, because I think that just gives us a little bit more time. But I'm excited. When they asked me what we would look like if they came back in 2 years, I said to them, if you come back in 3 years, we're going to look like a drastically different institution. You won't even recognize us. And I believe that with all of my being. We have the people in place to be able to do that. We're creating the culture. We'll have stable leadership to be able to do that. So strategic planning wise, I shared with them some of my initial concepts. I think there are some fairly easy ways to merge our plan in the systems plan. Our plan really doesn't capture a lot of specific objectives and goals. but it does have a lot of tactics that tie in nicely with the system's 3 strategic themes. And I think we can merge those fairly easy, with possibly adding in a 4th theme around infrastructure, which was something that the planning committee identified. In terms of governance, they asked very candidly, where are we, and the thoughts that people had around the college council, and it's more of an update. And again, I was candid on that. I think there's an opportunity for us as we get into strategic planning to look at our entire governance model and to make sure that it's something that people feel is we create it in a way that people want to actively participate and they want to engage. And I think there are all sorts of ways that we can do that. And we've seen that through this entire process. And in terms of budget, I think we started a plan here. I think the budgeting process is going to play into all these things. So I'm excited. I echo what Doreen said. I do think I'm hopeful that they're going to look positively upon us. And it's always nice when you have some smiles and you have some nodding heads. So stay tuned. And as soon as we have information, we will share that with you all next week. Graduation update. In order to do this graduation update, I am going to ask Danielle. I'm going to allow her in. Let me see if Tracy's on. Perfect. And I am going to pass over the floor to our co-chairs of the graduation committee.
Hello,
Danielle,
co-chairs.
Danielle, do you have? Can't hear Danielle right now. Let's try one more time. Tracy, Danielle, either one of you, can you speak?
Well, Danielle's so.
Oh, we had Tracy for a second.
Oh, give Tracy 1 second. I'm promoting her to panelist. I'm here. Can you hear me? No, Danielle, we can't hear you, but hold on. I'm going to try one more. Try promoting you to panelist as well. Okay, so we have Tracy. Tracy, you should be able to speak now if you want to give it a shot.
Hello?
Yes.
Lucky me. Danielle was going to do this. So we have a few things in the works, and a couple things are pending final approval. What we wanted to try to do was send out and have some YCCC class of 2020 bucket hats sent out to sort of wear this summer in sort of as a replacement to their cap for graduation. And they'll get a letter. We'll hopefully mail those out if President Fisher approves the money on maybe today or Monday, and get those out so they'll have them for the 15th, which would be when they would have graduated. On the 15th, we're hoping to do a Facebook watch party so students and family members can log in and watch their photos scroll, messages from the president, the deans, faculty congratulating the graduates. And then in the fall, if we're allowed to meet in groups, we hope to have an actual ceremony for the students and a sort of a bonfire, we're all back together on campus type thing the night before the graduation in October, with a date that's to be determined based on availability at Sanford, Friday night football games, and if we can even get together in a large group by then. I think that's about it. Danielle, can you type something in the chat or text me if I missed anything? She said the student putting the video together is doing a great job, and we have about 20 student photos so far. We hope we get some more today, and the faculty videos are coming in as well. So we're in pretty good shape.
Danielle, if you want to try to give a shot now, maybe I just unmuted you. Try that. Still nothing. Sorry, we tried. Danielle did say that the video is awesome so far. And Tracy, Danielle said you did great.
And the video is done by one of Mike Lee's students.
That's
Yes.
awesome. That's very cool. So jump in to fall planning. Unfortunately, it does not appear as if COVID-19 is going to disappear completely. As such, we're trying to make sure we have some contingency plans in place. We are right now trying to make sure we're prepared for at least 3 scenarios. The first one is that the semester will run as planned, and that's what I think we're all hoping and wishing and praying for. The second one is the semester, much like this, the end of this term, will be fully remote. And the third is that it would be partially remote and partially in person. I just really want to give a huge, Dean Rogan met with the department chairs, and I was, I truly appreciated being invited to that meeting, so thank you all. And it was great conversation. And I just wanted to publicly thank the department chairs for their work. As you can imagine, trying to prepare for 3 scenarios that could possibly happen academically it's a whole heck of a lot. So we recognize that, and department chairs, I thank you for everything that you're doing. Likewise, for all of our faculty and for all of our adjunct, any of you that are on here right now, ditto for each of you. So much goes into that. And we thank you. We're all hoping for the best, but we do want to make sure that we're prepared to make sure students get a quality experience with us moving forward. So thank you. We'll keep you posted as we learn things. This is something, these conversations are happening at a system-wide level, and really trying to make sure there's some alignment, and we're trying to share some best practices. I know Dean Rogan and Dean Airy both are very actively involved in calls on a regular basis each week to find out what other schools are doing. And I continue to be proud of the fact that I think YC is leading the way on so many of those conversations. But it is nice to make sure that we're hearing some best practices across the board. Anybody from SLT want to add to that? Dean Rogan, I'm looking at you if there's, no, I'm getting a nod no. So some fall 21 enrollment updates. Only one piece of data for you, one data set that I'll share, and hopefully, is this big enough for everyone to see? Yes, perfect. What you can see, we made a little bit of headway here, which is a positive thing in terms of we're seeing an increase in our head count, which is nice. And when you look at year over where we are in the cycle, new matric head count is actually up a little bit. That's nice. We're a little bit later in the cycle, so typically where we are in the cycle doesn't impact as much for applications and accepts, but it does really impact in terms of credits sold. So that's a good thing. What we see is we're seeing an increase there in head count. What we're seeing down here, this is a surprising number to me, this is the number as of today, is we're seeing an actual increase in new student credits year over cycle, so cycle to cycle date. We're seeing an increase there. What we're seeing is a decrease, unfortunately, on our returning students. So overall, we're down 40 credits year over year. We're also down slightly in the non-credit, and we're up slightly in the credit. Where all that plays out is we're about 1.2% down below where we were last year in this cycle. So that's decent news, to be honest. What we need to do, because all of this is based on percentages of applications, acceptances, registrations, and enrollment, we need to make sure that we keep that funnel going so we continue to grow up. The one area that I'm just asking everybody to pay special attention to is really this returning matriculated student. This was a question that came up in NECHI in terms of where we are in the budget, how are we planning, what are we trying to do for retention. I did ask Associate Vice President Gill to run some data stuff, and this is the trend of where we've been, and this is more cohort model right now. We are going to try to run some data to look more specifically, not cohort, but just in general from one semester to the next. But what you can see here, and this is the part that throws a little red flag up, we've seen a decrease in retention fall to spring for the last three academic years. We also saw last year a decrease from fall to fall over the previous year. If that trend continues in our fall to fall retention in here comes in lower than this 52%, that's going to be problematic for us. So anything that we can do to retain students and have those conversations and encourage them to register and enroll. I do know part of this, and part of this is just a byproduct of the situation we're in. Faculty have so much on their plate right now. They're trying to meet with students and trying to meet with students in a Zoom type of setting and have them register. So there's probably some of that that's playing in. But I just want to make sure that we're paying close attention to that, because that will be vital when we share numbers next week with you, our first initial projection for FY21. Some of the exciting things that we have going on, and I want to give huge kudos to Stacy for this. Many of you, working remotely, you can't see all of the marketing pieces that are in the works, and people continue to see suggestions. I think you're going to start seeing some of these play out. As we've shared with the community over the last couple of weeks, we have a number of initiatives that we were trying to roll out, and Stacy has found a way to bundle these together to make it a little bit easier marketing, and we're calling it We're All in This Together. And it really ties in the 6 things. Always want to go to college, try it risk-free. Your college plans have changed. Some free workforce development training that we're doing. The fast track to accelerate your program by helping people register full-time. Trying to attract the got college credits, trying to attract the people that have stopped out that we can come back. And then, of course, our Try Us Online 2-week initiatives. This page will be up very shortly, and a lot of these links will be up and live. And this was a ton of work. Really, Stacy took the lead on it. I know Dean Aries been working on this. Dean Rogan's been working on this. Associate Vice President Tatnell's been working on this. It's been incredible. I am excited about running this. I'm also going to stop for a second. Let me stop the video. I just received a video. We're trying to work to do some type of, have a video that will highlight the campus because people can't visit. And literally, as we've been on here, I received the first draft of the video, and I think you'll see that it has a little different feel. So I'm going to pause, unshare, and then share a different screen with you to show the video live. It's just a draft. We have to plug in. You'll see something on the draft that actually says plug in college fact here. We'll plug that in and a couple other pieces. But I'm actually excited about it. It's just a short, something that we can get up, and we can play out where we want to go from here. But I would love to share it with all of you and see the initial response. So I'm going to stop recording first and foremost. I want to pause recording, so let me try that differently. Pause recording. All right, I'll play this and let's see if people can hear it.
There isn't much to hear, right?
Just music. So I will stop that share. Curious of people's initial thoughts. And the whole idea is just to have something that students can see on the website. We can certainly do voiceover on this and talk about each individual area. We can do anything that we want, but really to try to create a feel and show people that can't come to our campus a little bit about our campus. So I agree that I think one of the facts is easily that we have the lowest tuition in Maine. We definitely have lower tuition than New Hampshire, that's for sure.
We might have the lowest in New England.
Yeah, good call. All right, let me close that out. So as always, would like to hear people's input on that. I'm going to go back to, oh, I'm going to share the screen again.
Where's Sanford? Good question.
We have to do a little bit more on Sanford. We didn't have the ability to get the person over there to do that yesterday. So there's definitely a little bit more work to do. Absolutely.
And having the chairs up on the table upside down looks sad.
Yeah, it does look sad. It does look sad. But that's something that we'll note as well. We can certainly make some modifications to that.
And the vet tech classroom. Yep. Classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully people, I think it gives us something. Hopefully people are excited about that. We're trying to play out maybe a more modern song that we can have on there, knowing that we might have to pay some royalty rights to that. We're going to try figuring that out and really try to use it as a retention part. But literally that was recorded yesterday, as Dean Rogan knows, and we received it today. So all in all, I don't think it was a bad job for getting it so quickly.
I love Steve's question. He said, how about some people? It would have just been Mike and I coming around the building. It would have looked even sadder.
It is. And it is funny because we actually looked at that, Steve, and unfortunately a lot of schools are kind of in that same spot. I do think that we have the opportunity when we get people back on campus and when we do some of the painting and some of the facility enhancements, we can do something a little bit more modern. But to try to give something to admissions right now is the critical part, because we don't have something on our website that currently helps with that.
And we do have some good pictures, old pictures with people in them that someone's just brought up. Maybe there's a way to include a few.
Absolutely. All right, I am going to move on from this. So other updates.
I think this is me. So I'm not sure we got the word out. You may have guessed, but Dirigo has been postponed. As the Teaching and Learning Conference was also postponed. That would have been a couple weeks ago. They are both being planned at this point to be held next spring. So we wanted to let you know about that. I also want to let you know about Perkins, what we're doing with some of the Perkins funds. We had ended up with a good amount of money left over this year because, you know, COVID-19. So some of the things we had planned, we weren't able to use funds for. And a couple other reasons. So we are looking at doing a fairly significant purchase to be put in the Student Success Commons that will help support vet tech students, pre-nursing students, any student in A&P class. And I actually forget what it's called, but it's a large table where you can sort of look at the anatomy of both animals and humans. There's a word for it, but we're anatomage, I think, is what Danielle's chimed in with. We are also looking to get the supplies needed to teach some of our new beverage courses that will include espresso makers as well as alcohol. That we have a secondary education liquor license. I believe that's the right terminology. And for next year's Perkins, we will be looking for suggestions, but one of the top things on our list is a simulated shooting range for criminal justice program. So we're trying to, we're looking at a couple different versions of that right now, but that will give something for our criminal justice students to have more of a lab experience, more hands-on options than they currently get here now. And I believe some of the local police departments are actually kind of guns and booze. Put that in the movie. So Krista said to add in fire. So fire, guns, and booze. We will increase enrollment. We will. So that's some of what we're looking at for Perkins for next year, but we actually have, we've really just started Perkins for next year. So there'll be calls going out to all the career-related programs for what might be, what we could do to help with capital improvements in those programs. I found out today that the system has purchased plagiarism software that will connect with Brightspace, and we've been waiting for that all year, so that's good news. They didn't tell me which brand we were going with. I apologize for that, but I wanted you to know about it. One other update, we had some information, actually I think from Peg, that some of the high schools may need some help from us or may need to send some of their students to us to finish up senior year courses. So Denise has contacted every high school to find out what, if there are some classes that their students might need from us this summer. And it's opened up some great conversations. So appreciate that, putting that information, moving that information up to us. A lot of interest in English, math, and sort of civics related options. So Denise was able to tell them about everything we had this summer and working around some conversations about next fall as well. You may have heard, or some of you may know, that some of the high schools are in the same place we are. They don't quite know what fall looks like. So we are losing some of our dual enrollment courses that we're used to having at the high schools this fall, but hopefully enrolling students this summer in some classes will help make up for that. I think that's it for my updates.
And thank you very much for mentioning the outreach that we're doing to the high school students, the dual and concurrent. We do have 2 letters prepared and ready to be sent out. We're waiting for one piece of information. Right now, the system is having a conversation with the Foundation for Maine Community Colleges about a possible scholarship that would be given to every high school student in Maine that is graduating, for them to possibly take one free course at the community colleges. So, because we'd like to make sure that that's in the letter to get that out there. One piece of good news in terms of the data that we've looked at is when we've looked at the last 2 years, 2.5 years, actually 2 years prior to this, of data of all of the students that were involved in concurrent or dual enrollment, what we found is 6.2% of them are actually coming to us as a matriculated student. 0.8% of them sign on as a non-matriculated student. So that 7% is higher than the national average when it comes to early college or running start. So that, I think that's a plus. We still got to find a way to capture that and convert more of that. And I think that that's really, really an opportunity for us. So some other small pieces that I forgot to mention on the marketing piece. Steve has the line of the day, by the way, in the chat. Booze and guns, put that in the movie. Booze, guns, and fire, you put all of them in, right? Dean Rogan. But we are working on a number of other initiatives marketing-wise. Stacy has been working very closely with Spectrum. Hopefully we're going to have a public service ad that will be running both on Spectrum and the over-the-top, their over-the-top version of that. We're also doing direct mail pieces. I think I mentioned this to Dover, Rochester, and the entire York County area. Happy to announce that system took our request and has agreed to run some of their system ads in the border in New Hampshire cities. So things along the seacoast with Comcast, like in Portsmouth, the Dover, the Sanford, the Rochester area as well. So hopefully that will expand the reach that we've had previously. We've also, at this point, Stacy and I have had two meetings with branding companies. We have another 2 on the books for next week to really look at some options for us. So I think we don't have the hard stuff to show right now. What, again, we're waiting on is a couple of small pieces so we can maximize the direct mail piece that we're going to send. If we're going to send it, we don't have money to send a bunch of them. If we're going to send one, if we can capture some final pieces of information that we're looking at, and along those lines, really looking at making sure, are we going to be able to move forward with the esports and the intercollegiate athletics? If so, I want to capture that and put that on. We'll know that as we roll out the first initial forecast for next year. So there'll be a lot more exciting news on that front to come, so stay tuned. That is, other than I think the final important date, which is next week, we will present our FY20 final forecast. Just a reminder, if you have not already, Please make sure you get to Tracy all of your projected expenses for the remainder of this year. Likewise, next week, we will be presenting our initial projection for FY21. And likewise, those are due today, your FY21 budgets for any of the cost center managers. As a senior leadership team, we're going to explore that. We're going to review those next week. If we have questions, we'll follow up, but we'll use that information to determine how we're building out the FY21 budget. So if you have not had an opportunity to submit those final two pieces of information, please make sure you do that today. Any questions for the good of the cause from people? I can't see the chat, Doreen, so I'm going to trust you on this one if there are any questions. No? You're muted.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Peg has asked if we can outline organizational changes. I think in part because you referenced two people as being associate vice presidents instead of associate deans.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. I'm used to the New Hampshire version still. New Hampshire doesn't have the dean. They do vice presidents. So associate deans. Thank you. And other than that, we don't have, I think as we lay out FY21, we'll lay out a complete organizational picture if there's any shifts that we have there. But there are no organizational shifts right now, other than Dean Owen, and I keep referring to her as Dean because that's her title over at Central Maine Community College. And I believe she's on this call right now. I don't have the ability to, I tried to, because she wanted to say hello and to the community, but I haven't been able to find a way to figure out how to give her access yet. But other than that, there are no other organizational changes at this point in time. And I apologize that I used the wrong terminology there. Anything else?
I think that's it, actually.
Well, I thank everybody. I continue to thank you all for everything that you're doing. We wouldn't have, I keep saying I've been on the job for 5 weeks, and I say this truly, I would not have gotten through this 5 weeks if it weren't for such a caring and committed community. I am honored to be a part of it. I thank you for everything you continue to do for our students. And some of you might have seen it, one of my corniness, but back in my coaching days, I would really emphasize to the teams that I was coaching that, team really does stand for together, everyone achieves more. And I think what we've been able to do, especially over these last 5 weeks, but especially what you've all been able to do in prepping for NETCHI and everything else, truly shows that we are stronger together. So thank you all for everything that you're doing. And as always, reach out if you have any questions. We will be in touch next week with additional information if we have it about NETCHI. And next week, we will share some budget updates with you all. That being said, thank you. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Rest up, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.